Yes.
Over to you, Dr. Irina. Apologies to everybody, but we got there in the end. Thank you.
Okay, so, sorry again for that technical issues. But what I want to share with you today is really how nutrition can be powerful in the situation with the children with autism and the whole spectrum and other neurological conditions related, because it's more looking an underlying mechanism, how nutrients impacting the body and the brain function. And sometimes people don't understand how important it is because it sounds simple. But actually, it's one of the fundamental things which we really just can't skip, because if we don't think about the gut and nutrition, it will, it will impact all your efforts which you try to implement for your child. So that's why it's one of those things which needs to be done in the right order. So let me explain that. So can we change the slide, please? So what I want really to explore together with you, what is actual autism, or what is actual real autism? And I would like to really focus on a few sort of points which I would like to highlight and explore together with you. Next one. Next slide, please. So the first thing I really would like you to focus that on a statement that autism is a whole body disorder. And if you appreciate that brain is a part of the central nervous system, which doesn't really exist separately, and central nervous system is a part of our whole body, different systems, and tightly connected with many other systems. And all the symptoms which our children experience on a neurological level, so they really come from very complex symptoms on a whole body level, including digestion, immune system, detoxification system, mitochondria, cellular function. All together, they are really influencing how our children behave on a daily basis, and how they think, how they perform, their meltdowns, their picky eating, their sleep pattern, their learning ability, their ability to talk, express, recognize the emotions, and etc., etc. So please think about it. Autism is a whole body disorder, right? Not just a brain disorder like we used to think. Next, please. To sort of think about this statement, there is a little bit statistics to consider. So we know that autism is highly overlapping with many different conditions. So at least 70% of individuals with autism meet criteria for at least one mental health disorder. It's up to 50% overlap with ADHD, up to 29% with the social anxiety, up to 13% with the general anxiety, up to 10% with the panic disorders, panic attacks, 40% with the epilepsy. But also it's highly overlapped with many different physiological conditions like gastrointestinal disorder, seizure, feeding difficulties, sleep difficulties, motor difficulties, and many others. Okay, so there is a research done in this area which really very clearly demonstrate that. Next one. So when we're talking about gastrointestinal conditions, it's really, again, lots of research connecting autism and gastrointestinal issues. And there is a lot of symptoms which which you probably see in your children with autism, they manifest considering their digestive system. 70% of individuals with autism experience gastrointestinal distress, and I see it in my practice all the time. We know the composition of human gut microbiome in children with autism definitely very significantly differ from neurotypical children, and their metabolic molecules they can measure in the body, which actually mediating gut-brain connection, also very different between children with autism and without autism. And right now we it's very freshly published paper last year, really identifying actually how it's done. It's not just the statement, yes, there is a difference, but actually there is a pathway we can follow now and see how it's the brain connected with the gastrointestinal issues. Next, please. So in this paper, it's really like a review of many different articles, actual fundamental research, which show that many different studies already demonstrate that actions that normalize the gut microflora cause remarkable improvements in autistic syndrome. And as you see on this picture here, we've got some kind of simplified version of mechanism, how it works. So if you imagine this is the gut, and there is good bacteria and the bad bacteria. Very often in autistic children, we see lack of good bacteria and overgrowth or pathogenic bacteria, which causing lots of toxicity in the gut through the leaky gut between, the gaps between epithelial cells and the gut. All these toxins really going to the bloodstream and causing neuroinflammation in central nervous system in the brain, which is really sort of impacting, again, is the behavior and the brain development of our children. So this is the simplified mechanism. Next, please. Another statement I would like you to consider that autism is not simply a genetic disorder. Again, in an old school, the people have been thinking autism is highly genetic disorder. It's not true. The genetic expression is highly influenced by environmental factors around us and the lifestyle we live, because there is so many different little factors through the mitochondria. This is the image of mitochondria I put inside, because this is the power station in each cell of our body, which really impacted by all that. And if mitochondria is not produce healthy energy to recover, to restore, to fix our DNA issues, our genetic expression would be influenced by that. So the genetic disorder, it's not about autism anymore. Next, please. What we can really say, it's more epigenetic disorder. And epigenetic, it means above genetic. So it's like a different level of transcription of genetic material. So if on this image, if you appreciate, this blue one is a genome, right? It's your DNA. So epigenetic sort of factors happening above that, and they really influence how that genetic material is modified. We actually can talk about switching on or switching off some genetic processes. And this is so powerful, because if you understand that we can actually control epigenetic factors around us, and we actually can switch on and can switch off some genetic material, and how our genetic material is manifesting in our body, in our brain, then we've got huge power over our health and over the health of our children, right? So this is very powerful information, and hopefully I would like to empower you that there is so much we can do actually. So next, please. So epigenetic factors, is basically everything around us. It's including everything like seasonal changes around us, some maybe disease exposure, toxic chemicals around us, some drugs, financial situation, stress, exercise, medicine. You probably take some therapeutic drugs or alternative medicine, some physiological state, psychological state, your interactions, everything. But I would like especially focus, because we have got limited time today, and that's where my expertise is, about the food and microbiome, because these two are actually very, very big players, two big epigenetic factors which play a role in autism. Next, please. So let's focus on microbiome, and let's dive into the world of microbes. So there is more than 10,000 species of microbes in the human microbiome. We keep identifying new bacteria, new living organisms which actually living inside of our body or outside of our body. So we call the gut is the second brain, and this is for the good reason, because the gut contains actually 100 million of neurons. They're really embedded in the wall of the gut. And if you do some kind of scientific research and do the staining, you can see it's like a whole network of neurons. That's why when you're very stressed or very worrying about something, you feel that kind of butterfly sensation in your stomach. This is your 100 million neurons in the gut flaring up. We all know for a very long time, but we keep now repeating that because we keep learning actually on a deeper level that 90% of all human illnesses can be tracked back to unhealthy gut. What we keep learning, there is so many valuable molecules actually produced in the gut. For example, 90% of the body serotonin, which is the happy hormone, and 50% of dopamine are made in the gut. Just imagine that. So when we're talking about neurotransmitters imbalance in our children who can't control themselves or struggle to be positive and things like that, so that's probably the gut is playing a huge role in that as well. Neurons, hormones, neurotransmitters allow gut-brain communication in both ways, right? So those molecules which are actually traveling and allow that like a big motorway, like a road in one way and another way, and it's a both-way communication happening. The gut flora plays a huge role in the human health. That's important. But what is interesting statement here, the last one, is that 90% of all genetic material in the human body actually is microbial. And this is very big sort of a statement to say, but it's scientifically proven, and it's really, how say, huge gate to understand when the toxins around us supposed to kill bacteria, we're slowly killing ourselves as well. And this is the part of our modern lifestyle. Next, please. So basically, we are only 10% human. Just think about it. So that's why how important all microbial environment around us and inside us is for our well-being. And when I talk to teenagers, I like to make a little joke. So I say it is important to monitor how you're going to the toilet. That it should be regular, because after going to the toilet, you are more human than before. Now, next one, please. So the gut flora make such a huge role in our sort of a functioning, everyday functioning. So first of all, it's protecting us from invaders, from viruses, from bad bacteria, because it's really through the mouth, all these bad guys come, and that's where the digestive system is protecting us, right? So it's allow appropriate digestion, absorption, and extraction of minerals from the food we eat. It actually helps to manufacture vitamins, like all B vitamins, vitamin A and vitamin K, which absolutely important vitamins. It's a good example. For example, if you can imagine, there is some animals which hibernate during few months. Here we've got bears, for example, who sleep for a long time. So they survive just because they had enough fat, because they've been eating during summer season, but also they survive because their gut microbial provide all these vitamins while they're sleeping. So without healthy gut microbial profile, they wouldn't be able to survive hibernation. So that's how important it is. So the gut flora also help us to produce essential fatty acids. It stimulates the cell repair. It's allows detoxification process happening. It's it's immune system modulation process taking place there, and it's really combating allergies and inflammation because it's connected to immune system. Just one small example. For example, one bifidal bacteria can break down cacao from chocolate into anti-inflammatory compounds, right? So if that bacteria wouldn't present enough, so we will be lacking anti-inflammatory compounds. So that's not very exhausting list, but I think at least the important key points there, why the gut flora is so important. Next one, please. So gut dysfunction definitely contributes to brain dysfunction. And again, there is lots of research showing that. And we definitely now see that when a child is born, there is two main scenarios can happen. If child have a good bacteria from the mother, and the child was born vaginally and receive good food from breast milk, there is some molecules in the breast milk which allow good bacteria to settle quickly in his gut. So it's possibly this child will be healthy, right? If the child somehow didn't get good bacteria from his mom, or he was born by C-section, he was on breastfed, he was on antibiotics early on and things like that. So all these factors can influence microflora, and this child possibly got some issues with the bacterial profile that could cause bad bacteria to settle and making some damage. Like we've seen in the slides before, it's producing some toxins which through the blood flow and through the leaky gut, causing lots of neuroinflammation and some brain issues, right? So, and that's kind of scenario we very often see in children with autism. Next one, please. So the gut and brain communication happening in main three sort of ways. So first of all, it's microbial compounds communicate with the brain through the vagus nerve, and this is the main nerve along the spinal cord, which is really connecting the brain and all internal organs, including the gut. So then the second pathway is through the immune system, because immune cells actually set in a gut, and the communication is happening two ways. And through the whole bunch of neurotoxins, again, which can be generated in the gut, and that's really influencing the brain development and the brain function. And just a few examples here. So, for example, we all know very well yeast called Candida. And if it's overgrowth in our gut, it definitely has a negative impact on behavior and function. Why? Because the candida is producing ethanol and acetaldehyde, which is neurotoxins. Ethanol, basically, it's alcohol. And, you know, when we have some alcohol, we behave differently. We can't control the body movement. Our body and brain connection is impacted. So lots of children who've got candida overgrowth can produce ethanol inside of them. You don't need to drink alcohol to be drunk. And these symptoms you can really notice quite often. Another thing, the gluten and casein. You probably heard about it because it's quite popular topics to discuss. Why these two guys are bad guys? Because if a person has a weak digestive system and microflora is not optimal, these two proteins, gluten comes from wheat, casein comes from dairy products. They're very difficult to break down. They're very big as a part of our agricultural development. Gluten is impossible to break down, and casein from A2 type cows also is impossible to break down easily. So if you even got strong gut, eating lots of gluten and casein containing food, you will just feel very tired because lots of resources body is using to break down those proteins. So, but if we can't break them down, so they called glutamorphins, you know, not completely broken, digested down gluten, and casomorphin accordingly. So these ones, glutamorphins and casomorphins, they call actually morphins because they've got opiates type behavior. So basically, kids who can't break down gluten casein will be impacted by these two opiates products and will feel like they've been given drugs. Again, this is could impact their behavior, their reaction, their eye contact, and many other functions. And another example, lots of kids with autism got Clostridia. This is a specific type of anaerobic bacteria which overgrow in their gut, which produced very, very toxic compounds, very specific neurotoxins. And it's been research done when they've been kind of putting children on a specific detoxification protocol. They cleansed them, the Clostridia were taken under control, and the kids changed their performance, behavior, and things like that. But because it wasn't followed up consistently, so bacteria start to, again, colonize, and the symptoms were returned to kids. So it's very interesting, actually, to observe that, you know, connection. Next one. So this is just a reminding how these neurotoxins can leak from the gut to bloodstream. So this is, again, leaky gut syndrome, looking closely. So this is epithelial cells in the gut. You can see they've got that kind of little hair. This is the healthy looking cells. But because lots of toxins, undigested food, floating in the gut, all these cells becoming a little bit weak and develop that kind of gaps between them. This is why it's called leaky gut syndrome. So through these gaps, all these bad guys here with the sort of grumpy faces, they're actually going to the bloodstream and causing systemic inflammation in the different parts of the bodies, but including the brain as well. There is even terminology, we say leaky gut, leaky brain, because the brain got membrane which is similar to epithelial layer in the gut, and very often kids developing leaky brain membrane. That's why the toxins can go to the brain. Just a second. Right, and I just put here as an example, there is a technique called FMT, fecal microbial transplantation. And there is lots of examples now when this technique is employed. We can see that when we, from healthy donor to put healthy bacterial material to the sick child or a sick person, so we can actually address lots of mental health issues, including autism, depression, anxiety. So this is just another example how microbial transplantation, good microbial material, can help with the neurological conditions, with the mental health conditions. Next one, please. So talking about the bacteria, there is three main groups of bacteria. So there is the bad ones, harmful, pathogenic. So look at this pinky one on a seesaw. It's really kind of nasty looking bacteria. So this is the bad guy. Then there is a beneficial bacteria, which actually, this is what we discussed so far, which giving lots of positive influence inside of our body. So I just list it again a little bit here. But there is an opportunistic bacteria. Is sitting in the middle, that yellow guys, and depends how they sort of grow. If they're under control of the good bacteria, so they behave themselves. But if there is, we've got low level of good bacteria, beneficial bacteria, and the bad bacteria is having party in the gut, so then opportunistic bacteria switching to be bad guys. So I compare them like to politicians. So depends on the situation. They could be a good guys, but could be not very good guys. So that's what opportunistic bacteria is. And we looking, when we do the stool test, we really looking this group very closely, because depends on their concentration, their number, they can be really nasty. And some examples here. So some of them, for example, can be iron loving or sulfate reducing bacteria. So sometimes our children or adults really low on iron, and we can do so much, but you know, we try to infuse iron, we try to feed with a good food containing iron, but persons still don't get enough iron. It's just because some bacteria keeps eating up that iron in the gut. Right? They normally producing lots of toxins, and they actually can cause this leaky gut. They really sort of, developing that gaps between epithelial cells to causing leaky gut syndrome. Next, please. So if we consider each person is like a walking ecosystem, so we all have lots of different living organism on our outside and inside. We've got some bacteria in our hair, in our nose, mouth, on our skin, in our blood, in our brain. Now we know from research, but the biggest, actually, there is some in stomach, but the biggest in our intestine. And we call it actually forgotten organ. It's about 1.5 up to 2 kilograms of living microorganisms, including viruses, parasites, etc., etc. So who providing that, you know, specific microbial world inside, which is actually a very important organ to consider when we're talking about any health situation. And there is again, just and I think sometimes you can show it to children. There is a good bacteria, and we call them tummy body, and the bad bacteria is tummy beddy. So it's like basically growing, if it helps you imagine the garden. So there is a good flowers, the pretty flowers, and there is some bad weeds growing. So normally 95% of bacteria in the gut is a healthy bacteria, and only 5% is pathogenic bacteria, which are under control of the good ones. But in our children with autism, that relationship's little bit different, and the ratio could be much more dramatic shifted towards the bad bacteria. Next one, please.
Dr. Ireena, we've come to the 40-minute mark, but I'm mindful that there were a few technical difficulties at the start. So we'll extend the session for 10 minutes. Is that okay?
Yes, yes. Let's. I will try to do quickly. Then we have a practical part, and then the question. So what we try to say. So basically, the gut is very important part, and how we treat it is very important. And there is lots of different factors. Yeah, you know, that not very exhausted list here is what we can do. What is damaging the gut, including antibiotics, different drugs, stress, infections, alcohol, dental work, and etc., etc. So next one. So because the toxins around us, we need to be very careful how we eliminate all the toxins or possible toxins we aware of to really protect our gut, because the toxins killing good bacteria, but the good food is nourishing bacteria. And these two very important things to consider when we're talking about the gut health. Again, you will receive probably the slide. So look at this list here. This is all gut damaging toxins we can find in our environment. Next one. There is lots of toxins we pass from generation to generation. And again, I like this study, but basically about 300 different chemicals been identified in umbilical cord of pregnant women, and lots of them very toxic compounds, which already our children have in their system when they're born. So this is also something we shouldn't forget. So it's toxin from outside and inside. They already, you know, accumulated. Right, next one. Don't forget about bad sugar impact. It's really, you know, it's the most important part. It's because it's suppressing immune system. It's reducing 50% of our white blood cells. It's depleting minerals. For example, to digest 1 molecule of sugar, we need 56 molecules of magnesium. Just think about it. And it's, of course, it's a feeding pathogenic bacteria, because everybody likes sugar. Next one. I put this slide here just to demonstrate you how much sugar we actually normally eat if we don't think about it, because all that kind of children's famous cereals and the fizzy drinks has an enormous amount of sugar. Next one. Next, right. So, well, fast food diet, slow learning, and reduced IQ. Again, this is the study. Again, you can look by yourself, but it's something to be aware of. Next one. But there is lots of research showing the positive impact of food and diet. And one study was published again last year. You can have a look at this study. There is reference here, but it's really showing that giving children good diet, gluten-free, casein-free diet, and important food like meat, eggs, vegetables, good sweets, the healthy sweets, and less sweets and less bread. So really showing very positive impact on their cognitive development and sensory awareness in the body. Next one. It is important to understand there is a fundamental food for brain, because the brain is a 60% fat. That's why it's so important to consider what our children are eating, so to develop their brain tissue, right? So again, unhealthy fats equal unhealthy brain, and the good fat, smart fat containing omega-3 fatty acids are fats really, really needed for brain development. Next one. This is just example, again, how could be powerful some nutrients. Here, in this case, it's omega-3. This is the handwriting of a child, 6-year-old child, you know, before treatment, or not treatment, or like intervention. And then after, the same child, the same text, he was done after 1 month on omega-3 supplementation. So you can see the big difference. Next one. So what parents can do? Let's do next slide. So please eliminate unnecessary toxicity from your house, from your environment, because there is so many toxins around. So water containing lots of arsenic, for example, and nanoplastic. There is some silver fillings and some dental work containing mercury, the fish, mercury. So there is lots of different things in the food, in environment, in jewelry, in you know, in the pipes, in our cutlery, which providing lots of toxins and especially heavy metals. And what is interesting here, when we will mention later on the personal profile of the child, you know, detoxification system works differently in different individuals, and it depends on many different small mutations. So, for example, if no a mutation in this particular gene, it's 100% detoxification process working well. It could be 50-50 ratio, it could be 10 and 90. So if your child only 10% can detox toxins only 10% out of 100, can you imagine how much junk he might accumulate? So understanding his personal profile is very, very important. Next one. So lots of heavy metals linked to different symptoms, and when you read it later, you might recognize them, but definitely I see very often heavy metals toxicity in children with autism. Next one. So please, please, please revise what is possible to change around you. Consider looking at the air and water inside of your sort of a apartment or house, outside, furniture. It's been treated with many different toxins, and sometimes we try to put new bed to our children or some new desk, but it may be even not good idea unless you really detox and aerate it for a few days somewhere else. So all these things so important. Cleaning agents in the house. How do you do dishwashing process? What kind of laundry powders you're using? They all full of toxins. Personal care products, whatever you put on the skin, it's absorbed straight away in 30 seconds. It would be in the blood and it will circulate inside of the body. So that's so important to consider. And of course, the food. Next one. So providing your child with essential nutrients, very, very important. Building blocks for brain and body are the protein and fats, and actually mostly animal origin. So that's why if child is vegetarian, it's a much more complex situation and needs to be supported very carefully. The smart fats, we already touched that. Fermented food and probiotics, absolutely important for gut health. Fresh vegetables and fruits, micronutrients, which providing lots of cofactors for detoxification process, for enzymatic reaction, very, very important. And of course, drinking and consuming clean water and green tea is very important for functioning, brain functioning. But also think about that there is no one-size diet. What can eat one person, maybe not be considered at that point for another one. Again, knowing what is good for your child right now, what food he can digest, assimilate. Very, very important, because, and it's changing. You start with one food and then you're moving next and next and next. So if child got some food intolerances or allergies, that needs to be considered. Next one. So how to eat? Eat organic, local, seasonal, whole, homemade. Consider quality of food, because if food been in transportation or in a storage for a long time, we're losing so much. Vitamin C can be lost up to 50% in 24 hours. Just imagine what we're eating. We're probably eating like a cardboard rather than fresh fruits and vegetables. If you buy them in supermarket where they kept in a plastic for a long time and before they've been transported and maybe sprayed with something. So it's a very big problem. Yes, we have so many products, but what are they empty, or do they have some nutrients in them? This is a big question. So prefer vegetables than fruit, because again, fruits got lots of nice micronutrients, but they also consider lots of sugar. Plan your meal. Breakfast is important. For child, breakfast is the most important meal. So that's very important to plan ahead, to make the time in the morning for good breakfast. Chewing is important. Lots of children either can't chew, either rush and don't have a time for that. And again, this is the big problem, starting with the chewing, because in the mouth, digestion starts to happening. And it's important factor to consider. I suggest eating as a whole family is important. Cooking together with the children, allow children to play with the food and mess with the food, because that's their learning curve. And finding the right time for food is also important, because if you ask child to eat in the middle when he's engaged in a game, so I'm sure some kind of resistance would be there, or meltdown or outburst and things like that. Next one. Next. Right. So I'm using this tool, and maybe you can use it to consider traffic light eating. So you can put the food in a sort of a green category, yellow in the red, and create that kind of imaginary sort of a game for your child. So this is a green food. It means you can eat it a lot. There is a yellow food. You can eat little bit, but slow down, not too much. And the red food, which you're not supposed to eat at all. So next one. Please, please, please start to read labels, ingredients, and nutritional facts about the food. Take your glasses with you, magnifying glass, use your phone is a tool. Few things to pay attention. So if the product you buy contain any trans fat, because this is very harmful, very pro-inflammatory ingredient in the ready-made food. If there is added vitamins or minerals, because they're not very good, if they add it on top, and if there is any sugar, and by looking ingredients, it's sugar is not just only sugar. Anything with end, O's end is actually sugar, plus like agave, maybe syrup, some molasses, honey, it's also sugar. So if you bring them all together, very often sugar would be ingredient number one. So teach your child to recognize that as well. Next one. Sometimes we mean very good and buy very healthy snack to our children. Dry fruits a good example, but please check again ingredients. Very often dry fruits containing some preservatives, for example, year 220, which actually is harmful and not recommended for consumption by children, but nevertheless, lots of dry fruits contain that. And it's really accumulating in the body and making a very harmful impact. Next one. And this is what I said about fortified food. So this is when they, first of all, when they make processed food, they deplete this food from vitamins because they take away lots of stuff, and then they bring back. The problem is all that additional vitamins and minerals, they're not recognized by body and actually can cause disbalance inside. Vitamin A, for example, you just can't see it like in a part of these cereals because it's fat soluble vitamin. It's just absolutely nonsense to add fat soluble products to that kind of cereals, right? And little by little, they can accumulate somewhere in the body. It can actually cause oxidative stress. Next one. You can tell me, okay, this is all good, but my child is a fussy eater, picky eater, and he got lots of sensory issues, and he can't eat this food and that food. I really understand what you're talking about. And with the working with the picky eating, we really need to go through the whole process, understand where the picky eating comes from. You need to exclude medical reasons for fussy eating. You need to follow specific guidance. Again, read all these steps here. Go to my YouTube channel because there is a short videos there where I explain about different type of picky eating and what you can do about it, right? Next one. So in a summary, what I just want to say, really think about autism as a whole body brain disorder. Think about it as epigenetic condition, not genetic. And it means we can change epigenetic factors around us and influence the health of our family and your children. Start with eliminating unnecessary toxins and support the detoxification process in your child. Nourish your child with essential nutrients through the routes which your child allow. So if he's a fussy eater, you need to adapt to it one or another way, but don't feed with the junk food. It just doesn't do any good for your child. Learn about your child's functional profile because that would really help to identify more specific function, the specific tools you can use to nourish your child and detox your child. Empower yourself because you know your child the best. So follow your parental gut instinct. It's really, really useful tool. And ask for support. I'm here and other professionals would be able to help you as well. Next one. If you want to learn more, you learn about my five steps biochemical brain body balance approach on my website. I don't have a time to focus on it. Next one. And as a part of that approach, I'm always connecting you with other professionals. Depends what your child needs the most. Once we address biochemical balance. Next. So start today, don't hesitate. I'm sure you're already in this journey, but maybe another sort of layer of information would push you to learn something different and address your child's health from a different perspective. Next. Thank you very much. And I'm ready for your questions.
Thank you, Dr. Irina. I'm sure everybody will join me in thanking you for such an informative, insightful, and eye-opening presentation. I'm sure we could have had much more time on this, and hopefully this will be the first of a growing partnership to deliver information for families and professionals. And we have a number of questions for you, and I'm sure there'll be more coming. I know we've reached the end of the hour, but if you don't mind us going through some of the questions,
I don't mind,
and any that are...
No.
Brilliant.
Go ahead.
And any that we don't answer, if we can answer after, and then we can post the answers for the family members. So I'll start off now.
Right.
So the first question comes from Marwa, where she's asking, are there any specific nutrients that can help or micronutrients?
The micronutrients, basically, it's all different minerals and vitamins. There is no specific, it depends on the symptoms of your child. For example, simply like if you look at the child's skin or nails, so, and if it's a dry skin or if child got eczema or any skin issues, it's probably child lack of essential fatty acids like omega-3. But it's not just omega-3, there is different omegas which are really useful and get from plant oils like omega-3, good quality 6, 5, 7, 9. That's why lots of different plant oils, good quality, cold press, you buy in dark glass bottles kept in a fridge, apart from olive oil, can be very beneficial. Cod liver oil, I definitely suggest for anyone, for every child, but especially if they've got dry skin or any skin issues. If your child got spots on the nails, it means they lack of zinc. If they're very acceptable for insect bites, it's probably they're lacking vitamin B1. Do you know what I mean? It's all of them important, but sometimes children deplete more or in other vitamins or minerals much more. But I would suggest good quality multivitamins and multi sort of minerals if you can. So, but make sure it's a good quality and designed for children for sensitive central nervous system. So again, I can share some brands which I'm using. And I suggest to my clients, I don't work with this, so I'm not sort of affiliated with them, but I guarantee the quality because I know the scientists behind development of these products. So don't buy anything from a counter because very often these multivitamins and multiminerals, they are not very absorbable and they not really useful. They're just expensive, that's it.
Thank you. The next question is, are there any tests for leaky gut?
Yes, we do. First of all, a leaky gut you can see by symptoms, right? If you see your child's behavior odd, if he experiences foggy brain, if he's a craving for sugar, if he's kind of living in his dreamy sort of a land, you kind of lose your child for a few minutes. Sometimes the children got this kind of silly laugh. That's kind of symptoms of leaky gut. But we can do the test. There is a GI map test, gastrointestinal map test. It's a stool test, which you can do. And they measure zonulin. Zonulin, it's a biomarker of leaky gut. So yes, we can test it.
Thank you. The next question is, do hot sauce and spicy food negatively affect the gut of an autistic child if consumed on a daily basis due to a sensory issue?
Right. Well, I think the spicy food is actually a good food if it doesn't irritate epithelial layer, right, of your child and his gut. So it depends again your background. I know the traditional food can be very sort of spicy, and in your sort of traditional cooking you use lots of spices. So if child eats more spice than normal child at this age in your culture will consume, I would worry because it could cause some actually food intolerances and some irritation in the gut. So, but it's a way to compensate some sensory issues for the child. Child who needs extra spicy food, probably lack of zinc. Think about it, and you can do the test for, again, home simple test. You can buy the liquid zinc and just spread it on a tongue of the child and see his sort of reaction, because the zinc doesn't have a pleasant taste. You can try it on yourself first. So spread it on the tongue and see if he really sort of making face and he doesn't like it, so very dislikes the taste, it means he feels the zinc. It means it's okay. But if your child doesn't, show any distress or any dislike, so probably he's actually lack of zinc. And that lack of zinc will contribute his sensory issues for the taste, which is again impacting his picky, fussy eating a lot. So that's something you can try and see if that zinc probably can be helpful for your child.
Thank you. This is a two-part question. Can the gut be tested to know if good or bad bacteria is present in the gut? And can a child having apparently good digestive system have bad bacteria?
Right. So yes, we can test. Again, the test I mentioned before, GI map test. This is looking. So this is very comprehensive test. It's looking bad bacteria, opportunistic bacteria, good bacteria in their kind of relationship, because it could be bad bacteria present there, but it's under control of good bacteria. So we're looking all that. So then it's looking viruses, parasites, worms. So there is other biomarkers. So yes, we can test it. So this is the first part. The second part, if child got healthy gut, it wouldn't have a bad bacteria unless it's been like some infection, recent infection. So he might have some bad bacteria overgrowth on a temporary base, but then the symptoms will go away.
Excellent. And the next question is consumption of yogurt good for gut health of autistic children?
Yes, but it depends on the yogurt. So if you buy yogurt with a, sorry, if you buy yogurt ready-made with a different additives, again, look at the ingredients. So the best yogurt, if you make it home by yourself, that's the best. If you buy natural yogurt, organic yogurt without any additives, like a Greek yogurt in a shop, that's a second best. And all the rest, would be the last choice. Because yogurt, it's a, like any product, it's about the quality more than about actually the name of the product. So consider natural yogurt, that would be the best. So it's probiotic food, but what if you make it at home, that yogurt will contain lots of good bacteria. If you buy it in a shop, it would hardly contain any good bacteria because the product needs to be pasteurized, right? But it still will be a fermented product. At least it doesn't contain that casein, which we discussed, and it's very difficult to digest. So it's easy for digestive system. It will get the calcium and other minerals and the micronutrients, but you not rely on a good number of good bacteria in that product.
And someone's asked, are we going to post the recording or slides after the session? We'll be in discussion with Dr. Ireena, and we'll be sure to share something that will provide the information in some form. We have already agreed to translate into Arabic for our non-English speakers, and this will be a conversation that will take place with Dr. Ireena after the session. But we're hoping this will be the first of a long partnership with Dr. Ireena based on the attendance today and the interest. And so the next question is, how much omega-3 is enough for an autistic child?
Well, again, it kind of depends on the symptoms, depends on a diet, if the child can consuming omega in a different form for the food. But there is no maximum limit, I would say, if the child can digest fatty food and the cod liver oil as well. So I would say 1 teaspoon is the minimum. but you can go for 2 teaspoons, 3 teaspoons, and see how your child's feeling. But again, make sure it's a quality product. So because the cod liver oil, it's a product, I like it because it's a whole product from the fish, but because the fish is contaminated with the heavy metals, it needs to be really checked, and all the quality control should be there for some products. So again, make sure the company is doing that. There is some companies, again, I can recommend because that's the quality control measures they use. There is also fermented cod liver oil available on the market. It could be even better, just a normal cod liver oil, because then it would be some positive, the bacteria strains there is well present.
Doctor, we have still a lot more questions, which shows you how interested everybody is. Some of the questions are similar to what we've had. Would you like to carry on?
Yes, sure.
So next question is milk good for autistic children? Yes,
milk contain casein, right? So if based to what we already talked about, whole milk is not a good product, but digested dairy product, like fermented product, could be a good one. So in your sort of area, also if it's available camel milk could be a better option to compare with the cow milk, because the cow milk is the worst. Again, because it's been modified so much, so it contains huge undigestible protein. So consider camel milk and fermented dairy products. That's my suggestion.
What kind of tests we can do to measure the microbiome? Is a home kit a legit way of doing that?
For microbiome, I would suggest already the test I mentioned, GI map. So it's probably easiest. You just collect the stool from your child, send to the lab. And we've got lots of information which tell us about it. But there is other tests like organic acid test, which is a really sort of it's a urine test, and it's looking at different biomarkers, I think 70 plus biomarkers, and we're looking the vitamins in energy production, the gut profile. So it's kind of screening test, which identifying the area which probably not functioning well in your child. So it's a slightly different, it's more metabolomic, it's how actually child is functioning. So right now, and it would slightly change with the time, with the measures, with the the protocol you implement. So it can be repeated again after a few months and see how the dynamic and how changes occur in your child. So at least these two will give us lots of information.
Thank you. And the next question is, do we need a detox course to clean the body?
Well, detox course, you definitely need some kind of detox measures. Sorry. Again, depends what kind of toxins circulating. So we can do heavy metals measurements, identification, and by again the different tests we can see if that child got some neurotoxins and etc. So you can start with the general detoxification, what we already discussed today, and then identifying your child's personal functioning profile that help us to identify sort of more specific steps. But detoxification program, it's not just detoxification, it's detoxification nourishing program at the same time, right? So some detoxification measures should be there, but as a parent, you don't need to go to the specific course to be able to do it, because there is so much information there that could be confusing and not applicable for children, right? So I hope it helps. It's probably not specific enough, but again, it depends very much on a child. What we discussed today, anybody can do, considering replacing the personal care products, the cleaning agents, and things like that. Just try to avoid any chemicals you can't pronounce. Try to use the products based on the natural products, like a bicarbonate soda, vinegar, essential oils, this kind of things. So then simpler than better. And then identifying the detoxification profile of your child, because remember the slide, with a certain mutation, child can detox only 10%, with others maybe 20%, with another mutation 70%. That would really help to identify how much detoxification protocol we need to design for specific child. So I hope it helps.
Thank you, Dr. Irina. There's a two-part question. How can we choose the right probiotic supplement type? And do you recommend probiotic supplements after antibiotics courses? I think you may have answered a bit of this already, but over to you.
Yeah, so the probiotic, you can use the sort of multi-strain probiotic. So that's probably the best, because we don't understand what is missing. So you just bring like a 14 strains, 20 strains, good quality probiotic, because it contains different good strains, right? There is a food kind of based probiotic. There is a soil based probiotic. You can do the rotation of probiotics every 6 months, because after 6 months, probiotic becoming less impactful. So you can do the rotation, and then if you do the test and identify what particularly missing in the bodies, your child's body, your child's gut, then we can do more specific probiotic.
Okay. Dr. Irina, there's loads more questions. I think we'll have 2 more, and then if it's okay, we'll take the questions offline, and then we can share it with our attendees. We've already taken much of your time already, which is much appreciated. So similar question to earlier, but this is more specifically around camel milk and how it could affect a child with autism.
The camel milk, it has a more beneficial sort of properties. There is even some research somewhere showing it's actually quite a good product for children, because it has a calcium, magnesium, different micronutrients, but it doesn't contain the big casein, which is putting gut in stressful situation. So that's why it could be a beneficial and even healing to some degree product. But again, for some children it works, but if your child got very big issue with the gut, I would avoid animal milk, total milk completely, right? So it depends. You can try and see the effect.
And last question, Doctor. One of the parents has said that the child's teeth are separated, so have gaps. Does this have any relation to their diet, or could it have any relation to their diet?
How old is child? How old?
I don't know. Ms. Athir Dosri, if you're still on, can you tell us the age of your child, please?
So if child 4 years old, so or around.
The child is 6 years old, Dr. Irina.
Oh, sorry. I think I need some water. Yes, so what is important? So if child still got milky teeth, that's fine, because when the proper teeth will develop, these gaps will be filled, right? And it's actually much better when the small child have a gaps, because this is the space is needed for bigger teeth. And this is a problem when we see when, actually when the bigger children have a multi-layered teeth growing. So this is kind of not enough space in the mouth for, for all teeth, and it's a problematic. So I wouldn't worry about the gaps between teeth if child still quite small, but I would suggest to maybe monitor and definitely sort of consult with a sort of a oral functional professional. It not necessarily depends on lack of micronutrients, but it could be a contributing factor. But I think it's sort of a more structural and sort of a oral malfunction could be considered as a part of that issue. But I would just monitor to start with until the child will develop proper teeth.